Today I want to show you how to replace a screen cartridge on a Marvin awning window. One thing to do to be sure that you get us the right information to order you a new screen cartridge is if you look here in the upper right hand corner, you're probably going to need a magnifying glass, is give us the serial number of this window, and we can put that number in a computer and it'll tell us everything we need to know about this window. So when you do order your new screen cartridge, you're going to get the screen cartridge itself. You're going to get this one-time use tool to help wind up the spring, and of course a set of installation instructions. So let's get started. To get started, we need to take off the covers and the whole mechanism and everything. So take a utility knife, and since this one's already been stained, or if it's been painted, you want to take your utility knife along this gap here. And what that's going to do is when we remove this cover, it's going to reduce any damage when we remove this cover. So say if this was painted and you didn't do this and you just pull this off, you could have paint, big old peel of paint coming off with this window. So this just ensures that it comes off cleanly. Now that we've done that, sometimes you can just take and just wiggle it a little bit just to make sure that it's separated, and then you can use my most favorite tool, kind of put it in there and help assist this off. And we use a friction system. Well, it's a barb and kerf system, so this fits in a groove here and these just pop right off like you saw me do that. And we'll do the same to the other side. Now we're going to remove this bottom piece here, because we want to be able to remove this to take these out so it's out of the way. So we'll do the same thing with the utility knife. Go ahead and score this paint line here. We'll go ahead and take our sharpened putty knife and we're going to put it in and we're going to lift it off. And then we're going to set this to the side. Now we can go ahead and remove these. Sometimes they could stick on this little lock insert at the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and just assist this out. That. Go ahead and remove this side. Now this may look a little different than what you may have. There's been a few design changes through the years. Some of these may be a little shorter, where there's a different part that goes in there that may look like this. So sometimes you have to take these two out at the same time. But this is last year's model. So this doesn't have it, has a different insert here. So we'll go ahead and take this off. So now we're going to take a utility knife and score this paint line at the top. So I just move this out of the way like this. Sometimes this will just fall right out once you take the side pieces off. Okay, now we'll just take our thick bladed putty knife and we're going to put it in this gap and it'll pop right out. Just like that. Okay, now we're going to look for this end that has this little thing there, and we're going to go ahead and take a flat screwdriver and we're going to put it in here and we're going to pop this off. And when you do that, you're going to hear a pop usually from the spring releasing. So if this were a regular casement, you would have one here and one here. But the awnings only have one little slot here, so there's not one there. So just go like this. There you go. That was the spring releasing. We'll go ahead and pull this off. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take the screen cartridge out. We're going to slide it right at the top, along with the pull bar. So now we're going to take our 7/64 of an inch wrench. Why that size, I have no idea, just to make it more difficult for us and harder for us to find. And we're going to go ahead and take off this piece here. Okay, go ahead and pull this off and we'll set it to the side. Okay, now we'll go ahead and just pull this screen mesh out right up the top. Now I would like for you to take a nail punch. I've already broken this tip off, but it'll be apparent later why we're going to do this. Is you're going to go ahead and shove this in here like this, and you're going to move it forward like that. because that's going to flare that out. So when we put the new screen cartridge in there, it's going to be a lot easier to get that in there. If you don't do that, it's going to be almost impossible for you to get in because that screen mesh is going to keep catching on these corners here. So by flaring that out, it'll go right in. So I'm also going to take this opportunity to replace this weather stripping with a darker weather stripping. And this one also happens to be torn. So if you ever have to do that, just take a putty knife. This leaf is very delicate, so it does tear easily. So take a putty knife behind it like this, and it comes out of this kerf. Again, we use the kerf and barb system, so it pulls right out. So I went ahead and cut this weather stripping. This is probably one of the most intricate cuts you're going to have to do. So if you ever have to replace it, you're going to have to copy the old one to get it to line up. And then, see, it's got that little leaf. So be mindful that you don't tuck it in there like that. It has to go over it like this. And then just put it on. And then we'll take some pledge later on and we'll put some pledge on this to make it so it's not so sticky, because it will make a difference on how it operates. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take out the screen in the plastic bag. And what I like to do is I like to go ahead and unravel it. I know some people don't like doing that, but I find it a lot easier if it's all the way, the screen mesh is all the way out when we change it out. And one thing I like to show you about that's different between an awning and a regular casement. One thing I like to do on an awning screen is check to see if they put the proper spring in here. And in this case, they did not. This is a screen for a casement window or a push-out casement. And the actual spring that goes in here is like this. And as you can see, there's a huge difference between these two springs. So I happen to have one of these on my truck, and we're going to go ahead and put this bigger spring in there. And then we're going to go ahead and wind it up. And there is a little notch here that lines up with the notch there. Now we'll go ahead and put the screen cartridge in the housing. This end goes in first. So we'll go ahead and put it in here like this. Be mindful not to tear the screen mesh on any of these corners. Okay, we'll go ahead and put this on. Inspect this first. This is actually a new one. Make sure that none of these are broke. And then we're going to go ahead and put that on there. And we're going to make sure that that is lined up with that hole. Just like that. You should be able to see that sticking out of there. We'll go ahead and feed this into that kerf or that slot, and then we're going to move the screen mesh all the way down. We'll go ahead and put that back in there because that fell off earlier that you didn't see. And then we're going to go ahead and take that in there like that, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten that up. So as we're tightening this up, this adjusts side to side. That way you can adjust the gap between this and the frame. I always like to go closest to the bottom of the window or the part where it goes into, and then tighten it all the way down. So this is where Marvin gives you this one-time use tool. And the reason why I say one-time use is because it is plastic, and you're supposed to be able to put it on a 1/4-inch drive, and then you can use it to wind this up. But if you don't have that perfectly on there, this strips out. So because I do this all the time, I actually have one that has a notch that simulates that. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. So I'm going to hold on to the screen mesh right here. I'm going to try not to let the screen mesh go back in here as I wind it up. Yes, there is a certain amount of clicks. I don't know what that number is. I always go by feel because I've been doing this a long time. So we'll get started. And then as it's got tension on it, we'll go ahead and let the screen mesh go in evenly. Just like that. So one way to know if you got enough tension on here, for me by feel, also on an awning, when you hold it this way, this should not fall down on its own. If it falls down on its own, you need to put more tension on here. But if you go up like this and it stays in position, that's another way to know if you got enough tension on this. Okay, we'll go ahead and reinstall this. We'll go ahead and reinstall this. I'm going to make sure that it fits in the grooves like that. Okay, we'll go ahead and install this side, make sure the kerfs line up. There is a little tab that sticks out here that actually goes behind here, so you need to be mindful of that. That's why you saw me struggling on the other one, was trying to get it up and over that little piece there. Okay, we're going to take my number 3 most favorite used tool, some pledge and a paper towel. We're going to spray a lot on a paper towel. We're going to make sure it gets it all, absorbs it into the paper towel. We're going to wipe this track down. Because if there's any dust in here that this slides on, it's not going to operate very well. And then we're also going to do the back side of this cover. And we're going to do this to both sides. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall these covers. So we're going to go ahead and put that back in there like that. Make sure that you don't see this little flap over the top of that. It's going to be tucked behind it. And make sure you really press these on. Sometimes I'll actually take like a block of wood, put a block of wood and take a hammer and make sure they're on there. Not necessary in this case, this went right on. Now we'll go ahead and reinstall this bottom hardware cover. Little bow in the center, just push it all the way down, make sure there's no gap along here. So again with the pledge, I'm going to go ahead and wipe this weather stripping off here. And the reason why you have to do that is because this little weather stripping goes along this bottom edge here and it kind of rolls in there. If there's any dirt on here, this doesn't want to go down all the way. So we're going to go ahead and wipe this down as well. Now it's time to try the screen. It works great. And yes, it's supposed to make that noise. That's just because this is such a long span of a window. The bar that holds all that screen mesh flexes a little bit and there's really no way to get away from that. So that is normal. So I hope this video helped you out in learning how to change out a screen cartridge on a Marvin push-out awning window. If this video helped you out, please help me out by hitting the subscribe button at the bottom, and that helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.